the presentation.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so basically our talk is focusing on the concept of buddy systems and peer learning as part of our Horizon 2020 project KIDS4ALL and the focus on building inclusive learning environments. So we're basically going to share this as in two parts. Basically based on systematic literature review that we have conducted, which is what we're going to be starting off with. And then Luisa is going to take over, Luisa and Klara, to basically explain how this is incorporated in our Horizon 2020 project KIDS4ALL, what the project is all about and what we're trying to achieve, what the methodological aspects are, the results, and then basically how the systematic literature review feeds into how we're shaping buddy system and buddy culture in our Horizon 2020 project. So I'm going to give you an overview on the systematic literature review we've conducted. We basically looked at peer-reviewed literature from Sage and ProQuest, and we found a good number of sources of literature on the topic. We found in total 53 papers that either focused on buddy system or peer buddy. However, then basically we had to exclude the number of papers for our systematic literature review because we only wanted to look at peer-reviewed literature, not other literature, you know, like articles in magazines or position papers, policy statements. So that reduced the number of papers that we were looking at. And we were looking at papers in the field of education and social sciences, but with a specific focus on also our target group, which is the 11 to 18-year-olds. So basically on compulsory education. So only buddy systems that actually operated in the education sphere, where the article focused on explaining that buddy system as a focus, not just as a tangent. So in the end, we had a total of 31 papers that we reviewed for this systematic literature review to extract main concepts of what makes up a buddy system. And what basically emerged from the systematic literature review is that the target groups are actually evenly spread throughout pre-primary, primary, secondary education, but they also span into areas of higher education and also including communities into these buddy systems. In terms of socio-demographic characteristics of the participants, they included a variety of individuals. So they included aspects of new entrants in orientation, for example, from kindergarten into pre-primary level or from pre-primary into primary level, but also new entrants into the school, so new arrivals. They focused on students facing social integration issues of various sorts that, for example, felt excluded in either recess activities or other social activities in the school, on students with learning difficulties with regards to, for example, literacy, numeracy, those types of aspects, and also on students with disabilities. Various disabilities, including also particularly autism spectrum disorder. And that also then informed the types of interventions that we found in this systematic literature review. So a number of them targeted orientation programs for new entrants or for new arrivals at school. And a number of them focused on academic or literacy programs. As an example, concepts like of book buddies, various social integration programs for integration of students, for example, during social aspects of school recess time, like the buddy bench, and also specific integration programs for students with disabilities disabilities or with autism disorder. So when we're looking at these features, we basically extracted 3 different types of body systems. However, basically, they are not actually mutually exclusive, and a number of them are basically overlapping, and the focus is basically, it's just a main focus. They are always incorporating also several other aspects into it. However, basically, their main focus of these body systems would be either in the academic social skills domain, so basically focusing on delivering academic or social skills, like for example through a book buddy system, where the main focus would be on enhancing literacy skills, spelling, the love for reading, or focusing on specific subjects to increase the academic skills in those subjects. The second area would be social integration programs, but here from a social perspective of like new entrants or children that are excluded socially in the school, things like interventions that focus to tackle bullying or focus on tackling other aspects of integration. Here also a number of interventions included not just school interventions, but also interventions that went towards community integration in general. So basically outreach between school and community. And the last type of buddy system intervention that we found were special integration programs with a particular focus on disabilities or autism spectrum disorder, where there was not just a general integration aspect tackled, but also training on a specific disability to the participants involved, and then basically integration of that individual. Now, what we found basically, and why we have undertaken this research, is that there is actually no clear definition and differentiation between buddy systems and peer learning. And basically what we found is that all these systems are generally emanating from the context where they were developed and with regards to the specific issue they're trying to address, and therefore the boundaries, or basically sort of, you know, what makes up a buddy system is a little bit fuzzy. So however, basically when we were going through all the literature that we found, the peer-reviewed literature, there appears to be, you know, some commonalities in how these systems operate and how we can differentiate them compared to, for example, other approaches like peer learning or mentoring systems, which is basically what our objective of this research was, to come up with a definition. What is buddy system? So how can we make this fruitful in our own project? And those features seem to be that there seems to be specific mutual dialogical relationship, in the sense that it's not just unilateral, the relationship between one participant and another, in the sense that one participant receives information and another person gives. However, but that basically both participants do benefit from the learning exercise in their own way. And to this end, most peer learning or mentoring systems do also have that element. However, basically the learning that would be acquired by sort of the person that passes on the information would be more of a soft skills nature, leadership or management skills, whereas in the buddy systems, things like book buddies, the benefit in terms of literacy and spelling is actually enjoyed by both partners. What we also found is that actually difference seems to be a motor for learning and for actually the motivation for buddy systems to come together. So for example, in book buddies, there were several concepts where pre-primary and primary children were teamed with secondary children and even senior citizens. So basically the difference between these different partners was actually what kind of inspired and motivated the participation. So the focus is less on sort of the commonalities and more on the differences as the motor. And here aspects like solidarity, empathy, and curiosity are actually the triggers that cause these body systems to come together and to be sustained. What's interesting is that generally these body systems are not coming about by the target audience systems themselves, but they are initiated. So basically schools generally in a structured setting, so in a school setting, teachers or school leaders would identify a deficit and then basically address this through the initiation of a buddy system. So in here, what we found, there is an element of deficit identification and focus that kind of brings this about. However, then basically that kind of concept is not basically retained in the project itself. There are a number of projects that focus also on prevention. So this is not just a remedial action, but also there were initiators of projects where there was a potential for exclusion and the buddy system was there to prevent this from coming about. So in essence, basically that led us to kind of differentiate buddy systems from peer learning in the sense that they do have elements of commonality. That's why there is the overlap. However, basically there's a stronger focus on the mutual learning and the dialogic learning. And I believe that Luisa is going to pick up on this also later on in her talk. So I would like to conclude basically by bringing together the key characteristics that we identified in the systematic literature review, and that basically also informed then the development of our buddy system concept in KIDS4ALL. So when you basically consider buddy pairing, what was evident was there are not just, it's not just a one-to-one system, but there are also buddy systems that are one-to-many. So basically one child with several children, for example, that are not necessarily always paired up. So basically that may operate at certain points in conjunction and then at other points, you know, like with other children. They operate for the most part on a student by student basis, but there are also teacher-student and teacher-teacher relationships that exist. Many of them work with like different ages, so basically younger and older, but there are also a number of them that operate within, for example, a same class, same age buddies who are collaborating, which then obviously makes it necessary to define, okay, how many buddies should be collaborating, who should be the buddies who are collaborating, and basically what should be the age of those buddies collaborating. What we also found is that generally what is necessary for this to come about is a structured setting and a commitment from that structured setting. So the teachers, the school setting, making available the human resources, the facilities, the material, and providing an initial structured training for the buddies to understand what the objective of the pairing is all about and how they can go collaborating. Generally, also they operate over a specific period of time, so they are not one-offs, but they actually operate for a longer durations, for several weeks, and sometimes also for an entire scholastic year, so that it's a sustained intervention. And what we also saw that that the impact was felt also beyond the period of the intervention itself. However, during the intervention, of course, there is the support, and then that is existing from the structured setting. Whereas then basically after the end of the intervention, it is within the drive of the participants themselves to basically sustain this. And here again, the success depends not only then on the structured setting, but also on the target audience of the intervention. And with that, I give over to Luisa. And I stop sharing.
Christine, maybe you can just keep sharing so that we don't lose time, Klara.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. I'm just going to quickly introduce the KIDS4ALL project. KIDS4ALL stands for Key Inclusive Development Strategies for Lifelong Learning. It is, as Christina already said, a Horizon 2020 innovative action, which started in April of last year and will be finished in March of 2024. The grant holding institution for this project is the University of Turin in Italy, and the project is coordinated by Professor Roberta Ricucci. In the project are involved 15 partners from 11 countries, 2 of them being the Institute for Education in Malta and the University of Jena in Germany. Next slide. Thank you. The KIDS4ALL project consists of 2 main pillars. One of them being an inclusive and multilingual learning environment where we provide learning contents, for example, on the 8 key competences for lifelong learning. And the other one being the buddy system. And the special feature of our buddy system, the next slide, please, is that we are concentrating on 2 strategies at the same time. Not yet, thank you. One is the conveyance of academic skills, and at the same time, social integration strategies by having the buddies working with the contents of the learning environment. Okay, now the next slide, thank you. One of the first tasks we had in this project was to conduct research on already existing buddy systems. So first we conducted a desk-based research and we're looking for institutions who are already working with different variations of the buddy system. And secondly, we conducted semi-structured interviews with project managers from those projects or actions, educators and teachers involved in the project, and also, of course, participants. For us in Jena, we mostly conducted our interviews online due to the coronavirus pandemic, but we were lucky enough to also conduct a few interviews in person. We held 9 single interviews, meaning talking to only one person, and 5 interviews where we talked to buddy systems or more than one person at the same time. Each interview took about 1 hour per participant. So if we had more participants, it took a little bit longer. And the interviews were conducted between May and August of last year. The next slide. Thank you. In Jena, our interviews came from 7 different projects we found during our research. 9 of these interviewees were persons involved in project management, of whom some also worked directly with the buddy teams, but some were only involved in project coordination. We talked to 2 social workers working with buddies and to 6 project participants from different projects, 4 of whom were refugees, and all of them were aged between 14 and 23. Our goal in Jena very particularly was to understand very concretely how the different buddy systems work. So how do the different projects or actions create the buddy teams and how do they support them? Also, which factors were factors of success for the project and which challenges they encountered. And then for us, of course, very important was which competences do the projects need and also which projects do the buddy teams need. And the results of our research will now be presented by Luisa Conti.
Thanks. I will do it in 1 minute. and that is there are very different kind of body systems. So everyone use, not everyone, but many use bodies, but they understand the same thing, but also different things. So like the structure is different, but the content is the same. So it can be two people, it can be 3 people, it can be a group of body who are bodies for many other children or parents, for example. Or also there is no fixed structure, and the body is just a culture. So let's see what we found out. Next slide. We found out actually that also in the body systems we analyzed ourselves in Germany. We really find again what Christine and Janice have found in the literature. So what characterizes body culture is a symmetrical relationship, also beyond hierarchy, and openness and respectful curiosity towards the other and the peculiarities which the other might carry, and perceived reciprocal enrichment through interaction. So the typical aspects of the dialogic approach, the dialogic culture. The picture that you see is out of our tutorials, because for this reason we are presenting here. What we do is fostering body interaction through our e-learning platform. And this e-learning platform, we have also tutorials where we explain how they can have a great body collaboration, but also how we explain older persons, who are the educators and the teachers, how to support them, and also how to create the body system. Because we've seen there are so many different possibilities. So it's very important that you understand the culture, the body culture, and then that you try to realize it. And to make it simple, we suggested to, can you go to the next one? We suggested to always do couples, and that the couples work together and have a clear goal. What I wrote here is amazing body teams. Yeah, so amazing body teams which should work out, and that is important that the body teams have a clear and mutual expectations. For this reason, at the beginning, it's important that they have they speak about how they want to work together, what's important for them, what they want to reach together. They have a balanced relation and reciprocal enrichment. So there is also the educator asked to check that really the relationship is healthy and balanced. They do frequent tasks, and they are clear rules for well-being. So what is also important is we want the body teams to be autonomous. Now it's about themselves, what they want to do, what they want to learn. But also it's important that there is a teacher or educator who can support them and give their further impulses. Yeah. Actually, the last slide, there should be an last slide. Yeah, so that is the body in KIDS4ALL. This is also an image of the tutorials we have prepared. And I wanted to read you what we have prepared for the body educators. I won't do it, but I invite you in 1 year around to go in the KIDS4ALL website, look for our platform, which will be open, and look at the tutorials. So you will see it. Thank you very much. And the last slide, Christine, please. Thank you. So stay tuned.
Thank you very much.